Well, hello everyone. This is Kennard Levi Brown speaking. I am your host for the Merciful Servants of God Biblical Instructional Program on the evening of Shabbat, um, Friday. I think I probably have my wife do the lighting of the candles as we approach further. We'll do it on the show like we've been doing in the past, maybe starting next week. So stay tuned for that. And I hope you've had a wonderful week. I know it's been a rough week for me. It seems like every week lately is a rough week for me because I'm doing a lot uh, in regards to work in the ministry, trying to finish up on my dissertation, which hopefully I'll get done this month, if not this month, next month. And that'll be a victory for me, that's for sure, because I've been dealing with it for 10 years. And so it's nice that I'm finally finishing up on it, and it'll open some doors, that's for sure. And I just thank Yodevahe. I had the tenacity and the strength and the knowledge and the intelligence to get it done. So many things you can do in life. The number one thing you have to remember is that God can give you the ability to do anything. And number two, you have to have the desire to do it. And those are the two things that I've tried to follow all my life. So let's pray. Eternal Father, thank you so much for allowing me to speak on Messianic Lamb Network here. And please speak the words you want me to speak, not what I want to speak. And help all those around the world that are suffering, and whether they're believers or not. And please be with President Biden and Vice President Harris, and help them to make wise decisions, and particularly about the gay issues and the abortions. Help them to understand the biblical way, the correct way of understanding those issues. So we ask all those things in your great Son, Yeshua HaMashiach's name. Amen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to go over the Torah portions for today. Is Emor, which means say or speak in Hebrew. And we're going to go over that, and then the Brit Hadashah, or the New Covenant, or the Apostolic Scriptures. We're going to go over those. And if we have some time left, we will actually go over some key world events that are occurring right now. Not to scare you, but to be prepared for anything. We have to be prepared for the worst. So, and hope for the best. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. So that's what we have to do. Now, before I even get into this, before I forget, and before Mark gets on me for not doing this, I'm going to advertise a special show that's coming on from the following individual. I'm going to go ahead and play it right now, and I will be right back. Okay, so Mark wanted me to advertise that for those who are into Hebrew, and I know there's been a big controversy about what his name is and all that. So based on my extensive research, no one really knows how to pronounce his name. And so the closest we have gotten to that is YHVH, or some people say YHWH. That's the Tetragrammaton. And some people say Yahweh, Yahovah, Yehovah, etc. So, but it'll be interesting to see what she has an extensive education in that area. So it'll be interesting to see what if she can shed any light on that. So, let me take a look at the comments here before I get into my other studies here. Ellen, Deborah, Ellen, let me see. I am very well, thank you. Okay. All right, everybody's saying their highs and so forth. I guess we'll get more people coming on here as I go. And let me pull out Chabad here. Let me get a little closer here to the screen. Let me pull this out here. Okay. Pull these things up here. There we go. All right, you should be seeing the convenient summary that Chabad does. It makes my job a little easier. I can actually do this myself, but I really think that having bite-sized Reader's Digest summaries is really good. And you guys could, of course, go into detail and do your extensive study later on. So, all right. So, Emor, or Say Speak in a Nutshell. You guys should be able to see this. And let me put something else on here. Oops. There we go. So you guys should be able to see that. And this is the Torah portion section that I'm doing. All right. So Emor in a nutshell, and you guys should be able to see this. Let me see. I have it. Let me blow it up a little bit more there. 200. All right. So the Torah section of Emor, Speak, begins with the special laws pertaining to the Kohanim, the priests, the Kohen Gadol, which is the high priest, and the temple service. A Kohen may not become ritually impure through contact with a dead body, save on the occasion of the death of a close relative. All right, so if it's a close relative, then it is allowed for the Kohanim. Now, a Kohen may not marry. Now, this is interesting. I really find this because, I'll just go ahead and read it. A Kohen may not marry a divorcee or a woman with a promiscuous past. A Kohen Gadol may marry only a virgin. Now, that's interesting that's talking about the physical priesthood, but we're spiritual priests too. And I've always wondered, could this spiritually apply to anyone that is a believer? Because it doesn't appear that way. I don't see that, but it's probably highly advised. There's exceptions. Highly advised that you try to marry someone that has not had someone else, because it could be a difficult situation, particularly if that individual experience a lot of hardship due to divorce and so forth. But hey, if you want to do that, it's fine. But this is probably wise advice to try. I know there's exceptional cases, but to try to marry someone who has not had a divorce and has not been married before. Try to do that. But actually divorce, that's what it says here, divorce here. So, because a divorce is painful, whether or not the individual was at fault or not, is a very painful process. I have counseled people. I know one couple that got a divorce, and it tore up this individual and it tore her up, and it's just it's not. when Yodevahi says he hates divorce, there's a reason why he says that, because all divorce does is destroys. It destroys the two people. It destroys the kids, their concept of marriage. It destroys, and if you have a married couple that is running a ministry, it destroys the credibility of that ministry. You may have situations where one individual was at fault and the other one really wasn't. I know, based on my experience counseling marriages, I would say the vast majority of them, both the partners are at fault. But you do have those rare situations where you have one individual doing what they're supposed to do and the other one isn't, you know, and because most people assume things, but you have to get both sides of the story from the husband and from the wife to make a decision. I think in a lot of cases, when the minister is a male, he's counseling a female, she can take a female friend in and they can both counsel. She can tell her side of the story. And then, of course, when she leaves and the husband tells his side of the story, because there's always two sides. There's very few people that I know that can actually tell accurately both sides of the story, because there's a lot of emotions wrapped up in it and everything. I know I try to do the best I can to tell both sides of the story about anything, because I'm not so interested in being right as giving the right information. If I'm wrong, correct me. If I'm right, just confirm it. You know, that's what I'm just concerned with truth, whether I'm right or wrong. Okay. So anyway, let's get back to this. A Cohen may not marry a divorcee, and the point I was making, that may be wise advice to follow if you're considering marrying. And of course, if you meet a woman and she's just so outstanding, the only thing separate and she got a divorce, well, that's an exceptional case. But if you find a woman or a guy and they keep on talking about their past marriage, and it's a lot of negative things that they experience from the divorce that is rubbing off on their character to the point where you cannot really deal with it, then this is probably wise advice also to follow in that situation. But certainly this Torah commandment is specifically talking about whether or not you are a Cohen or of the line of Aaron. Okay. And so a Cohen may not marry a divorcee or a woman with a promiscuous past. Now, promiscuous, that would apply to anybody. You shouldn't marry a man or a woman with a promiscuous past if they have not repented of it. Okay, so but this is interesting that it's saying even if the individual may perhaps repented of it, that it's not good for a Cohen. And see, here's the principle of being holy, kadosh, right? So because the priest is doing the work of God, and so that individual has to be holy, a minister, an elder like myself. It doesn't specifically apply to me or other elders, but some of it is applicable. Not to say, you know, if my wife died, I don't know if I would ever marry another woman, but if I was considering it, then I would certainly consider whether or not she has been married or not. And if she was married, was it a positive experience from it? Did the individual die, or was it through a divorce that was just torrid and just negative to the point where it affected this individual? So those are the things that not to say I wouldn't marry another woman who was divorced, but I would be very careful about it. And I would certainly use my knowledge and experience of being married before to make that decision. You know, a lot of positive traits in my wife, I would look at those traits seeking another woman. But, you know, my gut feeling is that if something happened to Cherie, I don't think I would get married again. I would just stay single for the rest of my life. So, but anyway, let's carry on here. Hopefully my wife won't be dying anytime soon. So, but anyway, so a Cohen may not marry a divorcee or a woman with a promiscuous past. A Cohen Gadol may marry only a virgin. And that's interesting. And really, that is, again, that's the best way to marry gentlemen, young gentlemen or old gentlemen or whatever. If you've never had sex before, which unfortunately is not too many people can raise their hand up and say that. I mean, that's even in their teenage age, unfortunately. But if you've been blessed enough to stay a virgin, and I'm talking about males and females, before you get married, I tell you, your sex life and your life with that individual will be so fantastic. If you can hold off until you get married. There's so much blessings in that. Unfortunately, I never experienced that. Very few people ever experience getting married to someone has never had any sex, or you didn't. I don't know what that feels like. I don't know what it feels like to actually be married, and I'm a virgin, and the woman's a virgin, and you have sex for the first time. I mean, that must feel great, and it's too bad that I had a lot of negative influences in my life, and I didn't really understand that it was wrong not to have sex outside of marriage until I was 18 years old. So, and then once I learned, it took years to get all that filth out of my system. So, and I'm sure many of you can say the same thing. So, but I'm just having a heart-to-heart, honest conversation. That's one of the things that the devil really bombards us with is fornication, or porneia. That's what it is in the Greek. And that's where we get the word pornography from. He bombards us with all kinds of wrong thoughts of how to have sex. It's certainly in society more so than it ever has been. You have commercials that push that. You have movies that push that. Even superhero movies, unfortunately, push the sex agenda in the wrong way. And so if you're having children, and I hope people who are planning to get married and have kids, you listen up here, because me and my wife have experience. So we raised a child to adult age, and he's fairly successful. So please listen up. You got to do all you can, and just like we did with Kennard Jr., to make sure that he doesn't have access, or those children have access to pornography or the wrong uses of sex. You've really got to use those. They have those parental controls for a reason. Use them. And if you don't know how to use them, I'm sort of a technician. Please contact me. And I forgot to put my email address on I didn't have enough time to add it to the, but I will in the future. But you can go to and get my ebook, and I think I have my contact information on that landing page. If not, you could go to my Merciful Servants of God. It's merciful. I'm in the process of redoing that website. Hopefully, next 3 to 6 months, I'll have a nice, brand new, spanking website with videos and all that on it. So I'm planning to do that in the future. The URL will be the same, Merciful Servants of God, but I'm going to update it to the 2021 because that website that I have two versions of it. I have the mobile version, and I have also the desktop. And the desktop version is like it came out of an old-fashioned whatever, in terms of the internet. So I need to update it. And then the second thing, you need to, instead of showing them Barney, and I didn't know any better, I had Kennard look at Barney, need to be looking at, was it Dobson's? He has this, I forgot the name of it, but it's a biblical cartoon series, and it really gets the kids on, Odyssey. I think it's Odyssey, something like that. Adventures in Odyssey. Yeah, Adventures in Odyssey, and it gets the kids to focus on God. And that's the kind of cartoons that I would have the kids look at initially. And so it'll get them into God. And Cherie just typing in there Adventures in Odyssey by Focus on the Family, which is a good organization. They're Sunday worshipers, but they certainly have some good articles in there about how to raise children correctly, and also dating and so forth. So this is some real good stuff. And I had Kennard read that publication for a while until he grew out of it. But anyway, a Kohen with a physical deformity cannot serve in the holy temple, nor can a deformed animal be brought as an offering. So that's interesting there. A newborn calf, lamb, or kid must be left with his mother for 7 days before being eligible for an offering. One may not slaughter an animal and its offspring on the same day. So God, again, is Kadosh. He's holy, and he wants us to give holy things to him. All right. The second part of Emor lists the annual callings of holiness, the festivals on the Jewish calendar. Okay. The weekly Shabbat. Now, it's called the callings of holiness, which is interesting. That is a very interesting phrase, the callings of holiness, because the Bible talks about how we're called, right? When you're called, the holy days have something to do with it. You're called to keep the holy days. You're called to keep the Moedim. This is a very good Jewish concept to understand. So when you're called to keep his appointed times. You are called, the Moedim means appointed times. You're called to fellowship with him spiritually at his appointed times. The Moedim. That's what you're called. I need to do a special broadcast on that one. But that's something that I just realized. We're called to keep his appointed times, the callings of holiness, the festivals of the Jewish calendar, the weekly Shabbat, the bringing of Pesach, offering on the 14th of Nisan at 3 o'clock. That's when they started. Actually, I think it was around 12 o'clock they started slaughtering the lambs. But anyway, the 7-day Pesach festival beginning on Nisan 15th, okay, which is the Moedim of the holy day. The bringing of the Omer offering, which is a sheaf from the barley offering. All right. From the first barley harvest on the 2nd day of Pesach. Okay, so they do the 2nd day of Pesach, but biblically is to be done the first Sabbath during the festival, the Sunday, that first Sunday. That's when you do the counting. If you guys want to get more information on the controversy that has always been between on when to count Shavuot, please let me know. I can send you some extensive information. But this assembly, the Merciful Servants of God, we do it based on the biblical text and what it states. And it states that it should be done the day after the Shabbat, which is on the Sunday. All right. And the commencement on that day, on the 49th day, the counting of the Omer, culminating in the festival Shavuot. For this ministry, it's going to be May 16th on a Sunday. I know based on the Jewish calendar, since they count starting the next day after the first day of unleavened bread, it'll be May 17th. So it's not too much off from the actual Jewish calendar. And we try to do the best we can to keep up with the Jewish calendar as long as it doesn't conflict the scripture. So, all right. So on the 50th day, a remembrance of shofar blowing on 1 Tishri. So 1 Tishri is the turn of the year, or the start of the year, secularly and agriculturally. And so that's when there is a blowing of the shofar. And then you have the Solemn Fast Day, which is a literal fast day. You have some people going around preaching false doctrine that it's not a day that you fast on. It is, okay? A Solemn Fast Day on the 10th of Tishri, the Sukkot festival, during which we are to dwell in huts for 7 days. If you are able to do that, there is instruction in the book of Numbers on how to build Nehemiah, how to build a sukkah. And if you can't do that, then you do the best you can. You can tent in your backyard, or hopefully things are clear up here where, who knows, we may have people, we have a fairly big backyard. We may have people come here, or we may go to an event. It depends on a lot of things. If the coronavirus is still an issue, that we're going to stay at home. If not, then we're going to go to the largest Sukkot that we can possibly go to, because we have a son and he needs to meet people. So we have to look out for him. I know almost every year I'm called to speak someplace, and usually the place that I'm called to speak to, they have very, very small congregation. And really, I would advise you, if you can, certainly during Sukkot, go to the largest group gathering that you can. Yeshua did that. He went to large gatherings during the Moedims, during the festival. So you should follow his example and do the same thing if you can. Now, if you can't, I understand lack of money or don't know anyone, whatever. Economically, you can't do it, then you do the best you can. But if you have the monies and if you can go to a large Sukkot event, please let me know. I may end up going to, I'm thinking about maybe going to Tim Heggs' Sukkot. I don't know. I have to find out how many people he has and all that before I even make a decision toward doing that. But anyway, but I don't know if that's going to be the largest. I'm going to go to the largest and sanest events. Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot event. That's what I plan on doing. And for those who've never gone to one, please consider doing it. And if you need help, me recommending a good fellowship for you to attend Sukkot, please let me know. I've been doing this now for how many years? Since I was 18. So I have a lot of experience. I know the players in this movement. I know who they are, and I do have good contact. So please let me know, and I can hook you up with a good, a decent. If you have kids, certainly you need to go to the largest event so they can have interaction with people their age. Please let me know. I can give you that information, and to a sane, because you have some that are insane, but sane Sukkah celebrations. Okay, that's what this ministry is all about, and those are the only ones that this ministry will attend. And I mean biblically sound. That's what I mean by sane. All right. And so anyway, and then you have the four kinds, which is interesting. It's similar to Matthew chapter 13 when he talks about the four kinds or types of people that are called. This certainly goes hand in hand with that. And I'm going to do a Bible study on the four kinds and how it relates to the parable of the sower. All right. So anyway, during which we are to dwell in huts for 7 days and take the four kinds of human beings, their characteristics spiritually, beginning on the 15th of Tishri. And immediately following the holiday of the 8th day of Shemoneh Atzeret. So let me explain what these days are, how Yeshua fulfills all these days. So first of all, he fulfilled the Pesach offering because he became the Pesach offering symbolically, and he was, despite what scholars have been writing and so forth, I don't see anything to convince me otherwise that he did not die at the same time, or at the same time that other Passover lambs were dying. He died around 3 o'clock. There's two references, or a primary source. A primary source is a source in research that you can find that verifies what happened during that specific time period in history. And so you have two. You have one in the Talmud that's debated whether or not it's saying what it's saying, but you have another one in the Apocrypha of Peter. I'm going to do a teaching on that to show that other people agreed with Bullinger and myself and others that he died on a Wednesday. All right. And so these are very old sources. Some of them are primary sources. Some of them are credible secondary sources. So anyway, he became the Passover lamb. All right. And he died. And so during the first and last day of unleavened bread, pictures you overcoming, pictures you sinning. I know some people say it pictures him in the grave. Really pictures is you eating his bread, which is his flesh, right? Not literally, but symbolically. And during the festival of unleavened bread, that unleavened bread is the unleavened bread of truth, okay, of living a positive messianic or Christian life like Yeshua. And so for those days, we picture eating the word of God through the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth during those days, okay? And Yeshua fulfilled that by his death, giving us that ability through his Holy Spirit. So then the Omer offering, the barley feast offering, that symbolized him going up to heaven. Remember, during the time that he was resurrected in John chapter 20. John chapter 20, she was going to touch him. He said, "Don't touch me, because I have not yet ascended to my Father in heaven. But I go to your God, and my Father and your Father." And so he did quickly go up to heaven and presented himself to the Father. That's what the wave sheaf offering represents. All right. And so Shavuot represents the giving of the Holy Spirit, but it also represents the giving of Torah. All right. And so he fulfilled all of the spring festivals. He personally fulfilled it. Now, he hasn't fulfilled the fall festivals yet. The first festival of the fall is Yom Teruah of the Feast of Trumpets. The Feast of Trumpets represents those 7 trumpet plagues in the Bible, which Yeshua, of course, will initiate. All right. And then the last trumpet the seventh trump, that's when he's going to return, start his return to the earth. And that's when the first resurrection will begin. Now, the Day of Atonement pictures the time when he's going to literally land his feet on the Mount of Olives. And it's a bloody day, and it's tied to Pesach, because both days picture his death. But the Day of Atonement pictures the culmination of the primary reason why he died, to save the world. He's going to come and save the earth from itself. And there's going to be a lot of blood spilled on that day. I don't know if he's going to arrive exactly on the Day of Atonement, but it's going to be around the time of the Day of Atonement that he's going to come back and land his feet on the Mount of Olives along with us. All right. And this will happen right after we become spiritually married to him in heaven. When the seventh trump sounds, around the time of the Feast of Trumpets, or Yom Teruah, we're going to be resurrected. Revelation 11, verse 15 tells you that. And 1 Corinthians chapter 15, I think is verse 50 to 52, tells us that the last trump, we are going to be resurrected and we're going to be changed. That's going to happen at the last trumpet blast in the book of Revelation. Revelation 11, verse 15 tells you that. And so when that's blown, we will ascend with Yeshua, and we will go and visit the Father and see him for the first time in heaven. Revelation chapter 15 tells us that we're going to be on the sea of glass. The sea of glass is near his throne. And the Father's going to see his new completely born. We were partially born again, but we're going to be completely born again. We're going to have spiritual bodies, and we'll be able to see him for the first time. And he's going to see us for the first time, looking like him and having his glory, or sharing in his glory as his literal children. And so that's what that pictures. The Day of Atonement pictures the at-one-ment, or the beginning of man becoming like Yodhe-Vahe, okay? Not having his authority, but being his literal children, having his substance, having his essence, having and sharing his glory, okay? And human beings will begin that process when he lands his feet on the Mount of Olives. It began with the first fruits, the first fruit resurrection, but it's going to continue to begin for people who weren't part of that first fruits resurrection. Of course, number one, the people that are left on the earth that survived the Great Tribulation. And of course, for people who will be born during the millennium. And then for that vast second resurrection that's going to occur. All right. And so the Feast of Tabernacles pictures that 1,000-year rule of Messiah with his bride, with his wife, which we will initiate and stabilize and bring into reality a peaceful world. Mr. Armstrong called it the wonderful world tomorrow. Well, that's what the Sukkot, or Feast of Tabernacles, Moedim pictures, the wonderful world tomorrow. 1,000 years of peace without the devil. The devil will be put away. That's also what the Day of Atonement represents. The Azazel goat figuratively represents that. Will be taken, or the Hasatan, or the devil, will be taken by a strong angel and thrown into the bottomless pit. And so there will not be a devil around for the people for 1,000 years. And he's going to be let loose after the 1,000 years, as Revelation chapter 20 reveals, to weed out the pretenders, because there's always going to be pretenders, folks. It's going to always be people playing a game and acting like they are really serious when they're not. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is, and you have to be on the outlook for it. Certainly, elders of assemblies, we have to learn how to weed out the pretenders. And so, and then Shemini Azeret pictures after the second resurrection, which is symbolized by a non-biblical commanded day, but nonetheless, Hosanna Rabbah, which is the great salvation. That is the great great white throne judgment. Those people will be judged at that time And then that leads into Shemini and Shemini Azeret, which is the 8th day of the assembly. Shemini means 8, or Shemini represents 8. Azeret is the assembly, okay, the 8th day of the assembly. And that pictures eternity. That pictures everyone finally being in the true image of God, the complete image of God, sharing in his glory, having faces shining like the sun, and everybody will be glorified, and everybody will be in the spiritual state and have a spiritual body, and everything will be perfect and purified. And then that's when the Father announces in Revelation chapter 21, he says God will be with men, and his New Jerusalem will come down out of heaven along with the Holy of Holies, where he resides at, and that will be shown for the first time to all of humanity. And then the garden, or the Gan Eden state, will be returned to where in its original state. And so you have in the book of Revelation the Garden of Eden, and you have the last chapter in the book of Revelation focusing on the Garden of Eden state again. That's one way you can tell that we have the complete Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Genesis talks about, or initiates with, Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. The last book in the book of Revelation, and the last chapter, focuses on the Gan Eden state, or the Garden of Eden state. And so that, in a nutshell, tells you how Yeshua has fulfilled and will fulfill the Moedim. And I'm going to do a study. I'm going to do a lot of, once I get this doctorate degree out of the way, look out. I'm going to be dishing out a lot of stuff, a lot of teachings. And I hope that you benefit from those. So next, the Torah discusses the lighting of the menorah in the temple, and the showbread, the lachem happening, placed weekly on the table there. And what is that? What is this? What does it mean here? The lighting up the table. That's what it means in Hebrew. Okay. Placed weekly on the table there. And so, yeah, the showbread, you have 12 of those, and it represents the tribes of Israel. And then the menorah can represent an assembly based on the book of Revelations. Okay. So, and then that assembly or menorah must be lighted. We must have, as my wife was saying at her Bible study, we must be filled with the Holy Spirit, so the Spirit can lead us. You can be led by the Holy Spirit, but we must make sure that we're doing all we can to have as much of it as we can. Okay, that's what the lighting of the menorah symbolizes. Emor concludes with the incident of a man executed for blasphemy, and the penalties for murder and for injuring one's fellow or destroying his property, monetary compensation. So God is he's a God of fairness. He's a God of integrity, and he's a God of justice. And we should be taking care of our property. We shouldn't be destroying other people's property, just like these individuals next door. Their dog, letting their dog tear up our fence. So we have to get another fence because of that. So that's one example of that. But we should be responsible, and we should care about other people's property. And we need to learn how to love our neighbor as we would love ourselves. Okay, so let me go to the Chatar section. Okay, this is Emor Haftar in a nutshell. And so I love studying that. I was doing a Bible study on the fourth temple, which would be actually the third temple repaired, basically, and expanded. But I want to complete that study, because the temple that is talked about in Ezekiel 40 to 48 is not like any other temple ever in the history of temples being built. And Yodevahe states that we should study that, and I'm going to do a study on that too. So it's a lot of teachings coming my way, folks. This week's Haftar discusses various Torah laws that pertain to the Kornim, the priests, a topic also discussed at length in the first part of this week's Torah portion. Ezekiel prophesies about the service of the Kornim in the third holy temple. I would say it's the fourth holy temple. It's the third holy temple restored, because when Yeshua comes back, the third temple that's been built already is going to be destroyed. So he's going to repair it and expand it, which will be rebuilt after the final redemption. The prophet describes their priestly vestments, their personal care, whom they may and may not marry, and their specific purity requirements, which preclude them from coming in contact with a corpse unless it's for the next of kin. He also discusses their calling as teachers and spiritual leaders, and that's what I and any other elder or minister inherits or has similar to a Kornim, that we teach. We're teachers and we're spiritual leaders. Okay, we're teachers and we're also spiritual leaders, but we don't offer sacrifices other than spiritual sacrifices, of course, which is another Bible study. But the prophet conveys Yodevahi's word: you shall give them no possession in Israel. I am their possession. So the Kornim do not receive a portion in the land of Israel. Instead, they partake of the sacrifices as well as various tithes. So the concept again of the spiritual leaders and the teachers being supported is even there, where of course is there during the Old Testament or Tanakh times. But certainly there's a scripture in I think it's 1 Corinthians chapter 9 that states that is continued on. Just like that environment, the spiritual leaders of today should be supported. All right. And so anyway, and I think I wrote an article on that proving that fact. Okay, so that ends the Torah portions for today, and we are going to focus on the Brit Hadashah, or the Apostolic Scriptures, next. And so let me come back here, see if there's any questions here. See. Prepare your souls. Raptor 7. I don't know who that is. God and tribulation soon. Okay, so God and tribulation soon. Don't take the vaccines. Prepare your souls to meet. So Raptor 7. I don't know. You're into the prophecy and all that. You could go to howgodcalls.com, and I have it advertised there. You can get my my ebook if you want, and enlighten yourself and so forth. But we're not into conspiracy theories and so forth and fanaticism. So that's what we're not about. And yeah, I know that it's certainly the end times. If anybody understands it's not the end times, it's something wrong. We know it's the end times, but we have to really use the biblical text to be able to tell what is true and what isn't, and whether or not we should ought to take a vaccine or not. That's a personal choice for anyone to take a vaccine. It's not the mark of the beast. The vaccine has been proven to be 94% effective. And so that's it's like similar to a flu vaccination. They've been having that for years and so forth. So, but hey, if you don't, I don't want to take it, and I hope I never have to take it. But it's something that you have to make a personal choice on, and should I need to take it, I'll take it. But I'm healthy, and my wife is doing okay. So, but I know I got to be very careful talking about this stuff. So that's what I'm doing. But I would never tell someone not to take the vaccine. Okay, so that's your personal choice of what you want to do. So in reference to see what else you're ready to say. The end times, we know with everything that's going on in society, we know it's certainly the end times. We just don't know the approximate year or day when he's coming back. And people that think they do, they don't. No one knows the day or the hour. Say, well, he's in my year. Well, we're not going to even know the year until the sacrifices are stopped, and then we can start counting. That's when Daniel chapter 12 tells us that. If you read that, we start counting 1,000. What is it? 1,100 and something. I forgot. 1,190 days. Yeah. You can start counting from there once the sacrifices are stopped. But we don't even have a temple built yet. So we have to wait till the temple's built, and then the sacrifices start, and then they're going to stop at some period. And then that's when we can start to count and approximate when he's going to come back. But until that happens, none of us know. That's why he tells us to watch and pray. In Luke chapter 21, verse 36, watch and pray that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things. So that's what he tells us. So shalom again, Adam. There you go, Adam. All right. So anyway, I'm going to go to the Bible here, and we're going to let me take this off here because we're not in the Torah portions state anymore. And we're going to go to the Bible here, and share my screen here. Okay. All right, so you guys should see my trusty eSword. And so we are going to do some studies here in the Bible and what it says here for the rest of the session for today. And so we're going to go to 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 4 to 10. 1 Peter. All right, so this is interesting. It talks about us being like a temple here, a living stone and holy people. That's what we are. To whom coming as unto a living stone, disallowed indeed of men, but chosen of Yodevahi and precious, you also as lively stones. So again, we're a figurative temple, okay? Are built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood. So this is interesting. So again, the Aaron priesthood points to the Melchizedek priesthood, which Christ is the head of that priesthood. He is the Melchizedek priest of the spiritual line. All right, so you have a physical priesthood and you have a spiritual priesthood. We are being trained to be a part of that spiritual priesthood. All right, so you also, as lively stones, are built up a spiritual house. So we are building a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer what I just talked about, spiritual sacrifices, acceptable to Yodevahe by Yeshua Messiah. So we are being trained by other qualified ministers, teachers, or elders to be a spiritual house, a kadosh priesthood, to offer a spiritual sacrifices. So what are those spiritual sacrifices that we should be offering? So let's take a look at in Hebrews chapter 13. And I'm going to put this in the complete Jewish Bible version because it brings out the Koine Greek a little better, referring to this. And so anyway, we have the picture of the Kornim here, and I'll just read this to lead up to what I'm ready to tell you. We have an altar from which those who serve in the tent are not permitted to eat, for the Kohen Hagadol, or the high priest, brings the blood of animals into the holiest place. That's where the place where God dwells, as a sin offering, but their bodies are burned outside the camp. So to Yeshua, he figuratively suffered death outside the gate in order to make the people holy through his own blood. All right. Therefore, let us go out to him who is outside the camp and share his disgrace. And that's what we do. We have to share in his sufferings. He said, if they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you. For we have no permanent city here. On the contrary, we seek the one to come. So we seek the one to come. What's the one to come? That's the Holy Yerushalayim, which is symbolized by Shemoneh Atzeret. Okay, the 8th day of the assembly, Revelation chapter 21 and 22 symbolizes Shemoneh Atzeret, the 8th day of the assembly, that beautiful time when everything, all righteousness will dwell. No one will be a sinner. All sinners will be destroyed, literally. And everybody will be one happy God family, because God's going to be one and all. Elohim. Everybody will be Chad, one with Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh. That's what Shemoneh Atzeret, or the 8th day of the assembly, represents. And so in verse 15 of Hebrews chapter 13, through him, therefore, let us offer Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh a sacrifice of praise. So it's a sacrifice of praise, okay, continually. So that's what the sacrifice, the spiritual sacrifices represents. For this is the natural product of his lips, but also spiritual sacrifice is this: don't forget doing good and sharing with others. For with such sacrifices, Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh is well pleased. And so those are the kind of sacrifices that are spiritual in nature, the type that bear the following fruits. Let's take a look at Galatians. My wife somewhat touched on that, but I'm going to go into detail here. Galatians chapter 5. What are the fruits of the Spirit? These are the spiritual sacrifices we better exhibit. So, right here. But the fruit of the Spirit, or the works of the Spirit, what we produce from the Spirit, is ahava, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, humility, self-control. Nothing in the Torah stands against these things. So these are the things that we need to be working on, okay? So it states right here, moreover, those who belong to the Messiah, Yeshua, have put their old nature to death. So we have to put our old nature, here, let me highlight this, to death on the stake, along with his passions and desires. That's what we need to do. Since it is through the Spirit that we have life, let it also be through the Spirit that we order our lives day by day. Let us not be conceited, provoking and envying one another. In other words, here we go with the pride problem again. That's what destroyed, or in the process of destroying, Hasatan, the devil, pride. And we got to make sure that we don't get prideful, and then through that pride we end up being destroyed ourselves. So we've got to learn how to have spiritual sacrifice. Another scripture that explains the kind of sacrifice that we need to have is Romans 12 verse 1. It states, I exhort you, therefore, brothers, in the view of Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh's mercies, to offer yourselves as a sacrifice, a living and set apart for Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh. This will please him. It is the logical temple worship for you. And so when we offer ourselves, we sacrifice ourselves for him. And then, in other words, do not let yourselves be conformed to the standards of the Olam Hazeh, or the current world we're living in right now. Instead, keep letting yourselves be transformed. So we should be transformed of the renewing of our minds. So that's a part of the spiritual sacrifice, so that you will know that Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh, know what Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh wants, and will agree that what he wants is good, satisfying, and able to succeed. And so this is very, oops, let me go back. I hate when I do that. Let me see what he says in his commentary about this. You know, he says something good. Trying to pull it up here. What is the matter with my program? Okay, there we go. Therefore, it says, offer yourselves, literally your bodies, as a sacrifice, a striking metaphor when animal sacrifices were still being made twice daily in the Jerusalem temple worship. And it says right here, Acts 6, verse 1 to 14, and Acts 8, verse 13, Shaul explained what kind of death is required. The believer is not to live by his old nature, but by the Spirit. Then he will be living with the Messiah's life and thereby be set apart for God. Oops. and it is the logical temple worship for you. King James Version has, which is your reasonable service. Greek latria corresponds to the Hebrew avodah, which can mean work, service. In the everyday sense, the cognate evet means slave, and this is what today's reader mistakenly picks up from the archaic expression in the King James Version. But the avodah, is also the technical term for the religious service performed in the temple, and the context demands this meaning here. So, I'm aware of the little quirks of the King James Version. I would say little, and that's one of them. But, I know how to weed away and give you the original text meaning when I need to. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that is it with the Bible. And I wanted to read a few excerpts from, let me take a look and see if I can find it here. From the economic collapse here. And then we'll be done. Pull this up here. All right, so this is the economic collapse. I love the subheading of this and the title. Are you prepared for the coming economic collapse and the next Great Depression? Most people aren't, and if you aren't now, you better start preparing, folks. It's coming. It's coming. You better start preparing. All right. And so this is a doggy coin. It's the perfect currency for the United States. I got to read this. Look at the little cute doggy. If you wanted to design a perfect currency for the farce that our financial system has become, you couldn't do better than a doggy coin. It was created as a joke. It has no real value, but investors are feverishly gobbling it up as if it was the greatest investment that any of us have ever seen. A lot of people talk about the Bitcoin bubble, but Bitcoin is only up about 600% over the last 12 months. I don't even get into that. I've had people try to get me into that, the Bitcoin stuff. Doggy coin is up about, I guess I'm saying it right, doggy coin is up about 18,000% over the past year, even though there is no restriction on how many doggy coins can eventually be created. There is absolutely no reason why any rational investor should be putting a single red cent into doggy coin, and yet it just keeps going up. In fact, at one point this week, doggy coin had a total value of almost 42 billion. Boy, I never thought dogs would be that valuable. But anyway, here's another article. The mass exodus from the West Coast is driving home prices in Idaho to insane levels. So people who fascinated about Idaho, it's going to be expensive to live there. Anyway, lots of people have been moving away from the West Coast over the last decade, but we have never seen the sort of mass exodus that we have seen over the last year. This mass exodus has created some extremely hot real estate markets in desirable areas located away from the coast. And according to the Wall Street Journal, the hottest real estate market in the entire country right now is Coeur d'Alene, I guess, Idaho. Any house in the area that gets placed on the market is likely to spark a bidding war. And according to the Coeur d'Alene Association of Realtors, the median price of a home in the region has risen by a whopping 47% in the last 12 months, and people getting out of the West Coast because it's just too expensive. Now, I wonder how many people actually read this article, because when you look at the headline of this article, you would assume that, oh, things are getting better, 10 signs that things are getting better in America. So he did that, I guess, to get people to read it, because a lot of people, my experience, when it comes to facing the reality of your situation, a lot of people don't want to face the reality. And so I guess Michael Snyder knows that. So he just went on ahead and put a headline in, make it real positive. So he's got some people, all they want to do is think about something positive. And you should have a positive frame of mind, but you have to have a realistic frame of mind. Yeshua was positive, but he also was negative. He had to be negative sometimes. So you just can't just always be, oh, everything's positive. Oh, I'm just ignoring everything. That's extreme. But then again, you can't get to the other extreme. Oh, the coronavirus vaccine is the mark of the beast, and oh, don't wear a mask, and all that. People making a religion out of those things, So you can't get to the extreme. You have to be in the center and balanced. Okay. Because the fact is, people were wearing masks during the Spanish flu, and things turn out to be okay in the end. And many people have taken vaccines, and most people are alive after they take the vaccine. Sure, some people die. That's the thing with any vaccine. But we got to have a rational mind. And again, I'm not going to tell anybody not to take the vaccine. That's a personal choice between you and God, or whatever. So anyway, 10 signs that things are getting better in America. So everything is great, and America is about to enter. See, he started out being sarcastic here. Everything is great. If you want to believe that, folks, everything is not great. Okay. And America is about to enter a golden new era that will be overflowing with peace, prosperity, and happiness. If you believe that, there is a very large bridge that I would love to sell you or like to sell to you. There is certainly nothing wrong with being optimistic. Yeah, you should be optimistic, about the future. And personally, I'm very excited about the next chapters in my life. But if you think that the United States is heading in the right direction, you're not thinking straight. Okay, let me underscore this again. I think I will probably read this whole article here. But if you think that the United States is heading in the right direction, you are not thinking straight. Evidence of our advanced state of decline is all around us, and yet we continue to embrace our self-destructive ways. So I very rarely do this, but I think for some reason I feel we need to take a more detailed look at this article here. And so let me make sure this is still showing on here. Yes, it is. All right. So over the years, I have literally shared thousands of examples that show that our society is coming apart at the seams. And today, I would like to share 10 more. So listen up, folks. I'm going to do some work here. I'm going to start talking about more of our social issues here because I need to, because they're biblical, what's going on right now. Over the years, okay, so number one, New York City was one of the most beautiful cities in the entire world, but now giant mountains of trash are piled up everywhere. And you have those rats, those famous New York rats. Approximately 2 million, or should I say infamous, 2 million rats are rampaging all over the place. In an attempt to turn the tide, the city officials plan to create a city cleanup corps. So that's how bad the junk in New York is right now. New York is being forced to deploy an army of 10,000 cleanup workers in response to worsening problems with trash and rats. A newly created city cleanup corps will be tasked with fighting the piles of garbage on the streets of the Big Apple, with complaints surging by 150% between March and August last year. After a $100 million cut to the city's sanitation budget, filth and rodent infestations have become a common sight, with data revealing that waste tonnage rose 15% by the end of March compared to the early months of the pandemic. Number two, in 2020, homicide rates increased by an average of more than 30% in major U.S. cities, and now homicide rates in many of those cities are even higher in 2021. So I'm just going to try to just go over all three of these. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I changed my mind here. In cities all over the United States, police officers are leaving the force in record numbers. Okay, why are they doing that? You need to read the rest of the article and find out. Number four, meanwhile, police departments across the nation are having an exceedingly difficult time recruiting new officers. In New Jersey, the number of qualified applicants is only a small fraction of what it was, because they're afraid about, the George Floyd stuff and all that. I think that has something to do with it. Less police officers will be needed if cities decide to simply stop enforcing the law. And that's what they may need to, that's what they may start doing. Number six, earlier Earlier this month, Charlie Biello shared some data regarding the explosion in commodity prices that we have seen over last year. I guess I can get lumber, gas. So these commodity prices are going. Commodities are things that you need. They're going up here. But the Federal Reserve insists that inflation is low and that we don't have anything to be concerned about, which is a lie. Number 7, the most Google-led sex question in 2020 certainly says a whole lot about where we are as a society today. Data from the online health clinic from Mars released this week indicates that the most Googled sex question in 2020 with more than 2 million searches was, what are the symptoms of chlamydia, which is a sexually transmissible disease? Number 8, as I detailed earlier this month, the cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis. And you get all these diseases by having sex out of wedlock and having sex with various different partners. That's where you get these diseases from. Have all soared to all-time record highs in the United States. We want America to be great at a lot of things, but not at spreading sexually transmissible diseases, or the acronym for that is STDs. And so the young people listening to this, the few that do, I hope you listen to this and keep yourself as pure as you can and stay a virgin. That's the preferred thing until you get married. Number 9, the western half of the country is in the midst of the multi-year mega drought. And 2021 is the worst year of that mega drought so far by a very wide margin. In fact, water levels are dropping so fast in Lake Powell and Lake Mead that authorities are on the verge of declaring an official shortage for the first time ever. So the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation released 24-month projections last week, forecasting that less Colorado River water will cascade down from the Rocky Mountains through the Lake Powell and Lake Mead and into the arid deserts of the Southwest and the Gulf of California. So water levels in the two lakes are expected to plummet low enough for the agency to declare an official shortage for the first time, threatening the supply of Colorado River water that growing cities and farms rely on. And number 10, we have known for a very long time that government agencies endlessly spy on us, but now even the Postal Service is tracking and collecting our social media posts. The law enforcement arm of the U.S. Postal Service has been quietly running a program that tracks and collects Americans' social media posts, including those about planned protests, according to a document obtained by Yahoo News. The details of the surveillance effort known as the ICOP, or Internet Covert Operations Program, have not previously been made public. The work involves having analysts trawl through social media sites to look for what the document describes as inflammatory postings and then sharing that information across government agencies. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, our nation is falling apart. We've got to understand that. And we can't have this everything's going to be okay type of cognizant attitude. We need to be realistic. We should be optimistic, but not be overly optimistic. And we should be negative, but not overly negative. So it should be a balanced way you look at things. All right. So, and I hope that you do that. Let me take a look at you guys' questions before, if you have any questions. Let me see. Consistency. That would be so wonderful. No sickness. All right. Let's see. Where's that email address? Oh, I'm sorry. What was it, please? See what else. We have 2 cases of the new Brazil COVID here. So if they really think that and dumb enough to not keep wearing a mask, right? Had to eat. Oh, he had to vent. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, it's nothing wrong with venting, folks. We got to do that from time to time. Just do it in moderation. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen. So I am going to say the priestly blessing here. And I'm just going to go read it. I'll sing it once I get better at it. You know, I can sing, but I'm going to be above average when I sing. I can do that. Just got to work on it. So anyway, I'll say it in Hebrew first. Vevereka Adonai Mish Vereka. May, oh, wait a minute. Yar Adonai Panav Ileka Vi Yachneka. Yisha Adonai Panav Ileka Vi Yeshem Lecha Shalom. So may God bless you and safeguard you. May God show kindness and be gracious to you. And may God turn his countenance or his face to you and establish shalom for you all. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed the program. I'm trying to do the best I can to make this program a lot better. And I'm going to be doing some things. Certainly, once I get this doctoral thing out of the way, I'll be able to have more time to really create some innovative and special and hopefully exciting in the right way videos. So stay tuned for that. I'm got courses on video production. I want to be a video production master. I want to be able to just do my own videos. I know in the past that I try to depend on other people, but they did this. No, Kennard, I don't want you doing this. No. So when you get that and they don't allow creativity, then you have to do your own thing. And so that's what I've learned. And that's a good lesson. No matter who you are, male or female, if you got certain skill and ability, don't let people tell you what you can't do. You can do anything you set your mind to do. When people start doing that, they're trying to control you. Okay. And there's a difference between controlling and leading. Okay. It's a big, I think I'll do a study on that. Everyone needs to be controlled when they're little kids. Okay. Or if you act like a little kid. So some adults that act like kids, you got to treat them like kids. Okay. But if you show the ability to self-control yourself, then you should have the ability to make your own decisions, okay, using your brain. All right. And so let me give you an example. If somebody is going around shooting somebody, say, okay, well, I'll wait until they're mature enough to stop. No, I mean, you've got to control them in that situation. If you are a supervisor or manager working for a company and you have a bunch of people making calls, and a couple of individuals are cursing or they're saying something stupid on the phone they shouldn't be saying, or they're not working, what are you going to do? Well, I'll wait for that individual to be mature enough to make their no. I mean, you got to control that situation. If you've taken any management courses, one of the concepts of management is setting certain controls in place. And that's what that means. You have to set certain rules and regulations in place so those individuals will do what they're supposed to do, and collectively the company or organization will thrive based on those rules and regulations that have been proven to sustain and improve the company. And so this is just basic common sense, but when you're and the devil controls you, God doesn't, but the devil controls you through his spirit of error. When you're controlled, you can't think straight. And that's the whole purpose. That's one of the modus operandi, or one of the things that the devil does, is to convince you and give you the ability not to think, not to use your brain properly, and not to think clearly about things. And he's an expert at that. That's his modus operandi. That's his purpose, is to get you off track and to get you not to be able to think properly. God's purpose is totally the opposite. He wants you to think, just like you guys seen that statue of the guy thinking. He wants us to do this. He wants us to think and be the thinker, just like that statue, just to think. Just look back and think about things before you do it. And it's something that we can all improve in, how to think properly, And so anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you have that website, howgodcalls.com. If you have not if you have not gone to the website and gotten the book, then you should do it. Okay, you should get the book. It's free. I'm not selling nothing. I never will sell anything, because I don't see any examples in the Bible of Yeshua doing it or his followers or any other prophets other than the false prophets. So false prophets will sell you this, that, and everything. But true people who follow prophets or who are prophets, I don't claim to be that, by the way, although people have called me that, they don't sell their stuff. Okay, they don't sell their stuff. All right, so And this ministry will never do that. So, right. And there's another one coming too. There's another one coming. Yeah, you're welcome, Ellen. I'm so glad that you're able to make it. And hopefully we'll see you someday. You know, who knows? Maybe they value bless me enough money to go visit you. So we'll see what happens. And you guys just take care and hang in there. And the thing to look at prophetically right now is the Middle Eastern war. And then I don't know what's going to come first, the building of the temple before the Middle Eastern war, or the Middle Eastern war before the I don't know. That's why we're watching. But those are the two main events that we need to look for. Middle Eastern war that will perhaps influence the building of the third temple, or the third temple being built. Those two things are those are the things we really need to look at. And I know people are concerned about the United States falling apart. Well, it's going to fall apart anyway. Just the way we're going right now, we're going to fall apart. I mean, we don't even know what a male is or a female is, and so forth. And I'm not going to get into all that, in detail, but that and other things, crime increasing, and the sex problems, which are vast. The way kids are trained today, they're not trained properly. Schools are certainly not helping, especially the public school systems. And so it's only society cannot last if the family can't last. Society can't last. That's what happened with the Roman Empire. If you study the Roman Empire, a lot of things that happened during the fall of Rome is happening right now in the United States. And I don't want to scare you, but I got to tell you this. July 4th would be the 245th year of the age of this nation. But nations typically, empires like ours, only last about 250 years. Now, I'm not prophesying we have 5 more years left. What I'm saying is that I'm approximating or guesstimating that we don't have a lot of time left. It could go another 10 or 15 years. I don't think so. That's my personal opinion, but we're just not in a good state right now. I don't see I see us individually repenting, whether it's in the United States or someplace else, but as a human race, I don't see us repenting as a whole. Individually, yes, and that's the way it's always been throughout the history of the world. Only the few seem to get it. Only the few answer the call, and the rest will be resurrected in the resurrection, and they'll be given their first opportunity to truly, really understand the true God. And so we need to be thanking Yodevahe every day that we understand what we understand, because most people don't understand what I talk about, or the other few ministers or elders around the world that are teaching the truth, what they teach as well. So anyway, let me take a look at any more of your comments. Yes. Sorry, but I need to leave. No problem, Michelle. All right, so I'm going to hopefully, like I said, definitely after I get this dissertation stuff over with, hopefully by May, but definitely by June, I'm going to finish up on that book, and then I'm going to have a website and a teaching series on it, and it'll be up on my YouTube channel. So stay tuned for that. And hello, Adam. All right, so everybody, I'm going to go ahead and leave you, and you guys take care. And I will see you next Shabbat, this coming Shabbat at 3 o'clock for those who want to participate in that. And then I'll be available next Friday, and then my wife for the women next Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay? So may Yah bless and keep you, and I'll see you next week. Shabbat Shalom.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.